Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the latest in our seminar series. Tonight's talk is by Geoff Lunn, who will be talking about Roman roads around what is now his hometown of Colchester, although he is, good man that he is, originally a Yorkshireman from Hull. Nice to see. Geoff is a retired electronics engineer who built a successful lighting business with his Dutch business partner. The pair of them creating giant LED lighting installations on many iconic buildings throughout the world. He retired in 2015, having previously been captivated by the Time Team series. Archaeology somewhat took over and he became rapidly hooked. And he ventured on his first excavation with Carenza Lewis, no less. He joined his local archaeology society in 2015, that's the Colchester Archaeological Group, and rekindled an earlier fascination with Roman roads. He joined their Roman roads study group, and in 2018, following other members stepping down, Geoff became treasurer. He also took over as chairman of the Roman roads group. Coming from a technical background, Geoff and the group have been focusing on emerging technologies such as geophysics, Lidar, drone photography, and thermal imagery in the quest to better understand the very complex archaeology of Colchester and its often puzzling network of roads, which he's going to talk about this evening. Without further ado, because we are now a little bit late, I will hand straight over to Geoff. You can start sharing your screen, Geoff.
Yep. Okay, hope you can see that. You getting that okay, Mike? Obviously, Mike's muted himself. I assume everyone can see this. Well, good evening, everyone. It's amazing to see all these people joining us for my little talk about Colchester. Let me just make sure that everything is working okay. Yes, it is. Yeah. Okay. A little bit about Colchester. This sign that you can see, these signs went up around Colchester a few months, maybe a year or so ago, proclaiming Colchester to be Britain's first city, which was at the time was a little bit controversial. Apparently, the colonia in Roman times meant city, and that's what this is based on. Most of you, I'm sure, know the Roman settlement at Colchester was made a colonia in AD 49. It was most likely Colonia Claudia Vitricensis, or city of victory of the Emperor Claudius. So that's how we come to be claimed to be the first city, even though we are still only a town. For those of you who don't know where Colchester is, there's a little map. We're about 60 miles or so northeast of London, in in Essex, which is part of East Anglia, which is the big area of land that butts out into the North Sea. For those, I'm aware this evening that I'm probably talking to people who know a heck of a lot more about Roman roads than I ever will, but also I think there's probably quite a few people there who are like myself, who don't know so much about Roman roads or about Roman history. So I'm going to try and pitch this somewhere sort of in the middle for everyone. So Colchester has a unique place in Romano-British history. It's the first recorded town in Britain, recorded by the historians, the Roman historians like Tacitus and so on. It's the site of Camulodunum or Camulodunum, where Claudius rode up on his elephants, apparently during the Roman invasion in AD 43, and accepted the surrender of various British kings. It was the seat of Cunobelinus, who was described by Suetonius as King of the Britons. It's got the oldest and one of the longest Roman walls in Britain, built somewhere around 70 AD, I think somewhere between 65 and 80 AD. If any of you have never been to Colchester, it is worth coming here just to see the wall. We've got quite a lot of archaeology, as you can well imagine. It has the only known Roman circus in Britain. Not very much to see, unfortunately, it's mostly underground, but we do have what we call the Roman Circus Centre, which is close to where the original circus was, with lots of stuff on display there. So again, if ever you do come to Colchester, there's a lot to look at. It's the first known Roman town to have been built over a legionary fortress, which apparently is pretty rare, and of course was the initial target for Boudica and her rebel army during the Iceni or Iceni revolt of 6061. And there's a nice little drawing by Peter Frost of the Roman circus as it may have looked in its heyday. Colchester is also, I'm afraid, the fastest growing town in the UK at the moment, or at least claims to be, much to our chagrin, those of us who live here. A little bit about the setup in Colchester. The Colchester Roman Roads Study Group is the group that I'm chairman of, and that is part of Colchester Archaeological Group, or CAG. And then we also have Colchester Archaeological Trust, and the Archaeological Trust are the local professional outfit. So CAG was formed in 1958 by local amateur archaeologists like myself, currently has over 200 members. CAT was founded in 65 by Philip Crummy, who I'm sure many of you will either know or know of him. CAT is a trust with 20 trustees. It's a registered charity. It's also a limited company and employs around 20 professional archaeologists. The Roman Roads Group was formed in 2016, currently has about 30 members, and we study the Roman roads in the area around Colchester. Our plan was to create an accurate and up-to-date map and a gazetteer of Roman roads, and to inform national institutions such as the Heritage Environment Record and of course the Roman Roads Research Association. So to avoid confusion through the presentation, CAT sounds a lot like CAG. So CAT I will refer to as the trust, so those are the professionals. CAG and the Roman Roads Group I'll just refer to as the group. And the Roman Roads Research Association, which is a bit of a mouthful, I'll call the R3A, I think. A little bit about myself. Mike has already kindly given you an overview of who I am. Retired electronic engineer, so I'm not a historian. Haven't even got history O level. Was a technical person all of my life, but got into archaeology when I retired. I am now treasurer of the Colchester Archaeological Group, and I took over as chairman of the Roman Roads Group from Philip Cunningham in 2018. And our group joined the R3A in early 2020. We agreed that we should at least check out who these people were. Pleased to say that we've got on very, very well. The R3A has had an enormous impact on our group. So our aim now is to bring our findings and observations into line with the sort of guidelines that the R3A are setting. Unfortunately, you'll find that some of tonight's presentation doesn't quite fall into line because it's a lot of work really to sort of do that. But we are beavering away in the background. So tonight's presentation is very much an overview of what I call a work in progress. I'm going to talk to you about what the Roman Roads Group are up to. So, I mean, some of the stuff I'm going to talk to you about tonight has literally just come to light in the last 2 or 3 weeks. I'm not going to try and talk about or try to interpret the evidence for the Roman roads around Colchester. I mean, there's lots written, lots of archaeologists have already tried to do that. It's very, very complicated, not always well understood, and I don't really feel qualified to do that. Excuse me. So yeah, tonight we're going to look at what the Roman roads group are up to, and the other thing is about tonight, I'm going to be presenting observations. I'm trying to avoid interpretations, and any constructive feedback from you folks out there would be most welcome. And the maps and diagrams that I'm going to show, I have simplified. So if you're looking at one of the maps and think, hang on, he's missed a road out there, well, that's probably on purpose to try and keep it sort of for sake of clarity. Just a quick word about Google Earth Pro. Where would we be without it? I'm sure most of you know Google Earth Pro, and I've probably been using it, and I put the URL there for you to, it's free to download. We make really extensive use of Google Earth in our group. It's free, it's very user-friendly, great for marking up maps, and easy to exchange information with colleagues using the KML and KMZ file format. It's great for spotting crop marks. I'm sure many of you have already tried doing that, and probably, well, like me, spent many hours, many happy hours, I must say, looking for crop marks. You can look at historical imagery, sometimes as far back as the Second World War. And that's important, again, for looking at crop marks, because these satellite shots are taken at a moment in time. It might be in the middle of winter when the crop marks aren't showing, but if you can look at earlier dates, then sometimes you're lucky and you find a day where the crop mark's showing. Very easy to measure distances accurately, so you can measure distances along Roman roads and so on. And most of the maps and overlays tonight I will be showing on Google Earth, largely because that's what we use in the group. You will see, unfortunately, it doesn't, what I'm showing doesn't always comply with the R3A guidelines. So, I mean, for instance, it's not possible, as far as I can see, to draw a dashed line on Google Earth, which is very annoying. Just do kind of bear with me on that. This is a Google Earth Pro image, just to show you what crop marks look like on there. This is a field called Tin Sheds near Stratford St Mary. It's probably a Romano-British farmstead, possibly with a road running through the middle of it. We don't really know. Don't think that field has ever been investigated. If it has, then I'm not aware of it. And this is a possible site, actually, for a possible location for Ad Ansem, if you know about Ad Ansem. It's only less than a kilometre away from Higham, which is where Ad Ansem is generally regarded to have been, although again very little has been found there. But anyway, that's just to show you what Google Earth looks like. This is a Google Earth satellite view of the Roman western approaches to the Colonia, to Colchester. So the blue outline there, this is the wall of the Colonia, the walled town. These pink lines are the major roads, shall we say, the major known Roman roads. As I said, it is a little bit simplified. There are a lot more bits of road than those, but those are the main ones. The orange lines represent the roads as identified by Ivan Margary. Again, I'm sure most of you, well, if not all of you, know of Ivan Margary. Did amazing work back in the 60s and 70s, plotting the known Roman roads throughout the country. So these two orange lines here represent roads that Ivan Margary felt that he had identified. I'll come back to the orange lines in a little while, because they're quite interesting as well. I had planned this evening to show some very nice photographs of a road in Colchester, which has recently come to light. Unfortunately, for reasons beyond my control, I'm not able to show those to you, or at least not able to show them to you tonight. I've agreed with the trust not to do that. Some of you will know what I'm talking about. Those of you that don't, well, it's not important, but hopefully I will get a chance to share those with you maybe sometime in the future. So in the absence of that, I've very sort of quickly over the last few days found some other photos to show you, excuse me, to show you the sort of evidence that has been found for the Western Roman approach roads. So this is a photo taken in 1928 in Beverley Road. For those of you that know Colchester, all of these photos, by the way, are all to the west, so between Colchester and London. This is a part of a road running under a house in Crefeld Road. So here you can see the gravel surface. All of the roads in this area, by the way, are gravel. We don't have any stone around here. So this is what we call metalling, and all the Roman roads in this area are like that. Here we have a crop mark. Hopefully you can see that running across a playing field at Shrub End, again west of Colchester. No, these are actually parch marks. I think this is, yeah, Google Earth summer 2018, the long, very dry, hot summer that we had. So that suggests masonry or a stone surface just below the ground. We haven't had a chance to investigate that, but hopefully at some time we will. That's an enhanced view of the crop mark, which I hope those of you that couldn't see it before, you can see the classic tram lines there, and that road is heading towards Gosbecks Park, which we'll talk about in a second. And the overall width of the visible mark here is about 15 meters. We can't really see what we think are the outer ditches, which we would expect to see as darker lines, because the ditches tend to hold water under the ground. I'm sure you know how these crop marks form. So it's a little bit odd, this, but the width around about 15 meters or 49 feet. I'd show this slide because I know there's a lot of people watching from Colchester tonight. I did a presentation a couple of weeks ago at our AGM, and the gremlins got in, and unfortunately I didn't manage to show this slide. This is a chap called Frank Lockwood, who sadly passed away in January this year. And this is Frank sitting on the surface, you can just see there, of one of the Roman roads. In fact, it's the main Roman road between the main gate of Colchester heading towards London. This, for those who know Colchester, it's at the rear of Crouched Friars on Crouch Street. Frank has passed away in January, gone up to the great evaluation trench in the sky, and no doubt telling everybody how to do a section drawing correctly. Rest in peace, my old friend. So you will have noticed that the Western Road network is somewhat more complex than noted by Margery. So Margery had this road here. This is what he thought was, or what led to the Great Road towards London, and this road, which leads down to Gosbecks Park, which is where it's believed that Cunobelinus had his farmstead, and the oppidum of the Iron Age settlement before the Romans got there. There was at least one more minor road running from the Balkan Gate, but the Balkan Gate here was the main entrance into the walled town, and you can see this pink line here is what I call the Balkan Gate approach. It only runs for 500 meters before it hits an interchange or a big junction, and then we've got these three main roads going off it. the location is underneath Colchester Royal Grammar School, CRGS. This was excavated by one of the schoolmasters some years ago, back in the 60s, I think. And there's a very, very large area of gravel metalling there. And I don't think anybody really quite knows why. So the Balkan Gate approach is, I think, really a very interesting section of Roman road. The lower level of the road is probably one of the earliest sections of Roman road in Britain, Colchester being the place that Claudius, during his invasion, headed for. But the road does, as we've just seen, doesn't head directly towards London, but towards this interchange lying beneath the grammar school. That's a picture of the grammar school there. And there are several roads branching out from that interchange. One goes towards London, one goes towards Gosbecks Park, as I said, part of the Camulodunum Oppidum. One goes towards Sheepen Romano British Industrial Area, which is a little way to the northwest, and then at least one small track with unknown destination. This is a visualization of the Balkan Gate, again by Peter Frost, who has done in the past a lot of amazing drawings for the trust. The Balkan Gate, it started life as a monumental archway, as I'm sure many of you know, and was the main entrance to Colchester from London. But the interesting thing about this network to the west is that this gate was effectively closed off, and the town ditch was actually extended across in front of this gate sometime in the 3rd century. So it seems likely, therefore, that this section of Roman road actually went out of use in the 3rd century, possibly during the turbulent times when Britannia broke away from the Roman Empire. The historians amongst you will know all about that. We don't know when during the 3rd century this happened, but it's pretty certain that that gate was closed. Excuse me a second. There's a couple of pictures of the Balkan Gate today. So, as I said, it started life as a monumental archway celebrating Claudius' victory over the Britons. It was incorporated into the town walls when they were first built, and then blocked in the 3rd century, and remains closed to traffic to this day. The main carriageway is now blocked by the aptly named Hole in the Wall pub here, which is not far from where I live. Nice little pub. And the archways and the gatehouse here are supposedly the best preserved remains of a Roman gateway in the country. And down here is a big dual carriageway that right now cuts right across where the approach road would have been. So back to our image of the Balkan Gate Roman road approach, just to remind you. So this is the Balkan Gate. This is the approach road heading off towards the interchange, as I call it, the big junction, and then these roads heading outwards. This section of road, by the way, I've shown 2 lines there. They approximate to where the outer ditches would have been. This road appears in various people's gardens, and so it has been excavated a bit over the years. The ditches are roughly 60 feet apart, so what Ivan Marbury would have called a secondary road. And then this road here, well, I've said towards London, but it's a bit more complicated than that. That is also around about 60 or so feet between ditches. Sorry, just go back to that. This junction, interchange or whatever, until the 70s, I think, when Philip Cromie and his team did a lot more excavation, this was thought to be possibly the site of the Camulodunum Oppidum. or possibly the legionary fortress. No one could really understand why all the roads were radiating from that point. And I don't think anybody to this day really understands it, but it has been proven, I think, beyond all doubt that the Oppidum, Camulodunum and the legionary fortress were not there, but there was something pretty substantial there. The modern route into Colchester, or at least into the walled town, follows this red line here. So this is Lexton Road, and then goes down Crouch Street and goes in via this gate here. This is a Roman gate. Nothing left of it above ground now, but that was called the head gate. This is ignoring bypasses, of course, but until relatively recently, that was the way in. But there's little evidence, as far as I'm aware, of the head gate having been adopted as the main throughway into the walled town in Roman times. And there's also little evidence for a replacement Roman road from our big junction here. There's no sign of any road going across to the head gate. There is this little track here, which is a minor road shown in green, which I don't think really has anything to do with it. So it's all a bit of a mystery. So how did the good citizens of Colonia get to and from Londinium after the closure of the Balkan Gate? This is one of my pet questions, if you like. They closed the gate. How the hell did they get in and out after that? Excuse my Latin if I got that wrong. So to understand the road system around Colchester, you need to know about the Iron Age or early Roman dike system around Camulodunum. It's very complex. So again, I've tried to simplify it. I've taken this image from one of the books by Christopher Hawkes and Philip Crummy. Here we've got the Colonia, the walled town, and there's a gap here. In fact, gaps through these dikes, and this is the way the road heading west towards London goes. It goes through the dikes, and it still does to this day. Colchester has one of the most extensive late Iron Age dike systems in the country. I don't know how many kilometres of it there are, but an awful lot. The dike system extended between the River Colne in the north and the Roman River in the south to form this kind of defended triangle here. Down here, this is Gosbeck's Park, which was almost certainly the site of Camulodunum, where Cunobelinus and his retinue were. So we can see these gaps in the dikes where the roads went. The gaps are still, the dikes, you can still see a lot of evidence of those above ground. Here we are. Here is Mr. Thomas standing on the steps of a section through the Lexton Dyke in 1932. Again, this is an image taken from Philip Crummy and Christopher Hawkes' book. You can see there how enormous this is. So down here, I think, is the ditch, and this is the bank. And these dikes are still there, and they're probably nowhere near as tall as they were in those days. They're pretty substantial things. So here's an image of, again, very, very simplified, of the road network that we've just been looking at. That's the pink roads relative to the dike. So there's a gap, big gap there in the Lexton Dyke. Here we have the Triple Dyke. And the sharp-eyed amongst you may notice that I've extended the Triple Dyke here. That's just conjecture on my part and wasn't meant to be left in there, because I think it may have extended, but we know that there's a dike here, the Triple Dyke, and then we have Grimes Dyke here, and again there's a gap here, which we'll talk about in a second. And bizarrely, the main road into and out of Colchester is called Stane Street. I know there are other Stane Streets in the country, but we have our own Stane Street here. So this is not at this point, it's not the main road to London, and we'll come on to that in a second. Yeah, a little bit about the orange lines. These are lines taken from Mike Bishop's website. Mike Bishop, if you're listening tonight, Mike, thank you very much for this. I make great use of this. Never met by Mike, never spoken to, but he has a book called The Secret History of the Roman Roads of Britain. And there was a website associated with that, which is this one here, romanroadsinbritain.info, still there, in fact. Basically, this shrrb.kmz is an overlay file for Google Earth, and it shows all of the Margery roads and many others, and I think also Roman towns and castles and all kinds of stuff. Amazing piece of work. It's obviously somewhat out of date now, but it's still a great resource. I checked the link on his website the other day, and it was dead. So I don't quite know what's happened. I'm sure somebody will enlighten me at the end. But any copyright by Mike or others that I'm not aware of is acknowledged, because I'm making a lot of use of that tonight. So the gaps through the dikes in a bit more detail. Here we have Lexton Dyke, which is the dike where we saw Mr. Thomas standing, and Lexton Road, which is the main western road into Colchester, still goes through that gap. I drive through there most days. Then we get to the Triple Dyke, where there's another gap, and this road, again, it's a putative road, which is why I've showed it in light pink, the Via Divana, as we call it, which is Margery or RR32, appears to start somewhere here and go through this gap. And then we have I think a wider gap in Grimes Dyke here, and an area called King Cole's Kitchen, which is supposedly Roman. It could, nobody seems to know what it is, but the latest thinking, I think, is that it was actually a Roman gravel pit. But it coincides with this gap here. And then we have another road, and this is a new road, which we'll talk about in a minute, which we think we've found. And then Stane Street heads off. Stane Street heads towards Broffing, over on Ermine Street, is it? Not sure, but at this stage we are not on the Great Road between London and Colchester. And here's a zoomed out view of the western routes, showing where the Great Road actually comes in. It's a branch off Stane Street. Okay, I've put down there the Great Road to London finally emerges as a branch off Stane Street. One wonders which came first. Well, I certainly do wonder which came first, because that would tell us an awful lot. Here you notice we've got Stanway, named after Stane Street. That's on the outskirts of Colchester. So the chronology of roads, for me, I think the chronology is very, very important and actually quite difficult to determine, because certainly in this area, dating the roads, you know, when they were first built and so on, is not that easy. The dating evidence is pretty scarce. And here we have a Roman road that probably isn't. This line here, again, this orange line is from Mike's overlay. This is Margery 320, RR 320 as we now call it, through Easthorpe. Pretty sure that this isn't a Roman road, because the group did an excavation here. This is Heckford Bridge some years ago, and couldn't find any evidence for a road. But also there are a lot of dikes in this area, and no one's found a way through for this road. I think it's just the fact that it's a straight road, but it is marked on the Roman, the map of Roman Britain, and Margery had it down as a Roman road as well. We've got others like that. In fact, I think they're all over the country. So The Great Road, Roman Road 3A and 3B, or Margery 3A and 3B, towards London, mostly these days buried under the modern A12. Here we have a lovely little overview from David Ratledge, who I'm sure many of you know. If you don't know, then you should certainly check out David's website, www.twither.com. This is a sort of 3D Lidar view of the Great Road near Margaretting, which is near Chelmsford, and you can see here a cutting, an embankment, and another cutting. So the Great Road does appear in places where the A12 is bypassing places. It also goes through Chelmsford, which has been identified as Caesar Margus, which means market of Caesar, and I've often wondered which Caesar is being referred to there. And here's a crop mark. This is from Google Earth, and this is again near Margaretting of the Great Road. You can just see the classic tram lines there. Interestingly, there's major archaeological investigations going on along the A12 at the moment. They're about to widen it. So we're hoping that we may get some evidence, particularly at the junction between the A12 and the A120, which is the Great Road and Stane Street. I have made contact with the people who are doing the dig, Headland Archaeology, and this lady, Emma West. They won't let us on site because of health and safety, which is a great shame, but we will hopefully get feedback from them and reports and so on. As you can see now, the A12 is not such a great road these days. Always lots of delays and potholes and what have you, but anyway, they are planning to widen it. And there is a story, I think Howard Brooks from the Trust told me a story about a chap who made it his business to wander up and down Stane Street whenever there's any roadworks going on. He would peer into these holes in the ground, trying to find evidence for Stane Street having been a Roman road. And drew a blank. He never found anything. So there is a question mark about whether Stane Street was actually Roman or whether it was perhaps an Iron Age track. So again, let's hope these people, our friendly archaeologists, find something. So I mentioned David Ratledge a minute ago. I'm sure most of you know David or know of his work. He does amazing stuff with Lidar. There's the URL for his website, Twither, Travels with Romans. Do check it out if you haven't before, because if you're into roads, you really need to know about this. David's based up north and has done a lot of work up there, but also has associations with this part of the world and has done quite a lot of work around here. And he and I liaise occasionally. I haven't been in touch recently. David, if you're listening, I apologize for that. I've just been too busy, but I'm sure we will talk again soon after tonight. This is David's Lidar overlay around Colchester. So here's the walled town, and here are the roads. So here's the Great Road. Here's the road going down to Gosbecks. This is the continuation. Sorry, this is continuation of the Great Road. No, that is. And a road going off to the north. What David has found is very interesting, and there's too much of it to really investigate quickly, or certainly to talk about tonight. But if I move on, I wanted to talk to you about this little road here. So this is what we call the Pie Road. So this is a continuation of the Great Road. So you come from London, go through the town, and then carry on. And this goes towards Combretavium, or at Coddenham, and eventually gets to Venta Icenorum near Norwich. And this is one of the roads that may or may not be a Roman road. Let me move on. Yeah, what David spotted on Lidar was this hope you can see it, this big cutting here. Now this is in an area just to the north of Colchester called Highwoods, previously unknown. Almost certainly man-made. It's got to be man-made. There's no water running down it. You can see where it's been dug out, and you have these two big banks on either side. This is a Google Earth image. So the earthwork is here. You just can't see it because it's all trees. And there you go. That's the line that David has identified. And it actually lines up pretty well with the road here. If I go back again, here we have Brinkley Road, and down here we have Turner Rise. And there you go. So it's actually lining up quite nicely. There's a picture of me looking wistfully up the northern bank. Very difficult to take pictures or get pictures of earthworks like this with sort of really convey the size of them, but hopefully you can see with me that in the foreground there, this is a substantial piece of work. Photo taken by one of our members, Sue Keane, a few months ago. And David's interpretation, which is very, very sensible, is that this may have been an alternative northern route, sorry, western route, I should say, northwestern route towards the Pye Road and on towards Combret of Ian, so that it would go up there, whereas the Margery and others have it going up here. And of course, it's quite feasible that both at a certain time were in existence. We know that the roads changed. The thing about this that kind of doesn't work is that the archaeologists, the trust, over the years have done quite a lot of work, especially just north of the North Gate, which is here. And there's no evidence for a road having gone north from there. In fact, there's a substantial Roman building in the way. So big question mark over that. There was a road found, which I've highlighted there some time ago, but again, not a big road. This is in the car park when Asda's were building a supermarket. And the thought is that perhaps came from an unknown gateway down here in the wall. But again, not well understood. So I thought, well, this is very interesting. Let's see what happens if we extend the Highwoods Road. So rather than coming in down here, let's see where it might go. And there are a couple of alignments here, two very, very prominent hedge lines in this area, which is called Hilly Fields. Those of you that know Colchester, this is the hilly, fieldy area just to the northwest. A closer look there. What I've found interesting was that these alignments, particularly this one, which follows this hedge here, is actually aiming almost directly to this big gap in the Lexton Dyke. And these alignments show up pretty well on Lidar too. So there's the big hedge, and it looks like it may continue there. And then this other alignment here. For those of you that don't know much about Lidar, the light areas are higher and the dark areas are lower. So this is a very, very prominent hedge line, which I've walked. You can't walk along it, but walked beside it many times. The red lines there showing what we're talking about. Okay. The flat areas here and here. Why have I lost mine? Loads of points. These flat areas are playing fields, so these have been leveled, unfortunately. Hilly Fields has been much messed about with over the years, so these hedge lines, and there's quite a lot of lumps and bumps and linears that you can see on there may not be anything to do with the Romans, but on the other hand, they might be. And it all starts to get more interesting when you realize that these, this is David's road, or David's extended road coming down, and this is one of the alignments. And this area here is a very interesting area, the St. Helena School Romano-British temple complex. There are at least 5 temples found there, and 2 of the temples are just there where the laser pointer is, and this is the river. So they're very, very close to where there may have been a crossing point. Then, not so long ago, I discovered that Tim Dennis, Dr. Tim Dennis, who is our Lidar and geophysics guru, had done some geophysics over the area. The red line there is the outline of the school, St. Helena School, just to sort of give you an idea of where we are. If I zoom in on that, that's Tim's magnetometry. He also did ground penetrating radar. Very complex, but hopefully you can see, well, you can see lots of lines and stuff here, which probably represent ditches. Here's David Ratledge's Highwoods route coming in. And this is one of the hilly fields alignments, and you can see hopefully that they're pretty close. And those red lines just highlighting where there may be ditches, suggesting roads. This line here is the Temenos wall, which is the outline of the precinct of one of the temples, one of the major temples. And it looks like one of the ditches may actually overlay the Temenos wall. So again, the chronology of all of this, I think the temples are pretty early, so it's possible that they went out of use and that a road was built. Don't know. Also, there are notes on this background image, which is from earlier excavations, noting metalled areas. Anyway, I then discovered that the Trust have a number of reports on this area. This number 835 shows it all in detail. So the blue lines are roads, Roman roads. Here's our Roman road that we were looking at earlier. Here's the big interchange. The dashed lines are conjectural, but conjectural on the basis of some evidence. There's another dike here, which I haven't shown so far. This is Sheepen Dyke, and there's a gap in that dike. Here is where David's alignment comes in from Highwoods, and here is the Hilly Fields alignment, and it's all looking very interesting. So yeah, in summary, again, just observations. It seems like to me that the Highwoods approach road could have crossed the river here at Sheepen if it had continued, and would actually line up quite nicely with this road. There's a gap in the dike, so, and this line here is a known section of Roman road. It's not very substantial, I don't think, but to be honest, have not had the time to really research this fully at all, but wanted to sort of let you all know what we're up to and what we're looking at. What am I saying here? Yeah, well, basically, I'm sure you can see that all of this is kind of starting to line up. I've said there more research required. I mean, there certainly is a lot more research required, and I'd be very interested to hear thoughts from any of you about all of this. So this is my sort of thought about what could have happened. This is David's line coming down from Highwoods. Here are those temples. Here's the river, crossing the river, down through the temple complex, through the gap in Sheepen Dyke, straight across Hilly Fields, and through the gap in Lexton Dyke. A northern bypass, perhaps. As I said, this is just an observation. The archaeology is a lot more complex than I have talked about tonight, and it would take somebody a lot of time to really get their heads around it. I mean, there are people like Howard and Philip at the Trust who, well, I haven't actually shown this to them yet, so it'll be interesting to hear what they think about it. But I think it's interesting. So time is running on. A couple of other things that we've been looking at. So to the northwest, running from King Cole's kitchen, if you remember I mentioned, we have this crop mark, very substantial crop mark, which has been known about for quite some time. And there was a pipeline put across in 74, and the group were invited to inspect it, and the conclusion was that it probably was a Roman road. The pipe trench had collapsed by the time they got there, but the people who looked at it knew what they were doing, knew what they were looking at, and they felt that was a Roman road. And here is that road which we saw earlier coming from King Cole's kitchen down there, from a lane called Iron Latch Lane. This is where the crop mark is. And just here is a site of a villa excavation that's been going on for quite some time at Fordham. So the road is very, very close to that. If we zoom out, you can see we've traced this road with a reasonable certainty to the top of Sandy Hill at Wormingford. Let's move on quickly, I think. So that it shows pretty well on Lidar. So there's King Cole's kitchen. I hope you can see the alignment. You probably can't. By the way, if anybody wants to look at Lidar and doesn't know how to do it, check out lidarfinder.com. It's not brilliant, but it is a way of seeing Lidar. That's the route. So I hope you can see very, very faint traces, but there are traces of the road up to here, which is top of Sandy Hill. One of the things that we do, or at least that Tim Dennis does, is to use different filters to try and tease out features. And this is a particular filter. This is a high pass filter. Don't worry about the technical terms, with a 40 meter footprint. And this really does bring out the lines in much more detail. The road, the putative road, crosses the River Colne just south of that crop mark. Myself and some others from the group have been investigating. There's a lot of gravel in the riverbed, and there isn't very much gravel anywhere else. This is the point where we think the road crosses, and we've had a rootle about, done some metal detecting, found a lovely Republican denarius, and a very rare, or relatively rare, coin of Electus, who I'm sure you all know was one of the usurpers in the 3rd century. And that's a close-up of the coin, possibly minted in Colchester. It has a C there. This is a better version. You can see the C. It may have been minted at Corinium, but it may have been minted at Colchester. We prefer to think it was minted in Colchester. So the Roman road can be traced to the top of Sandy Hill, and then we get to Wormingford and this field here. This is Metlands, and I hope you can see a very, very interesting looking field. Lots of round barrows and all kinds of stuff there, and what is known locally here as the Metlands cursus. And I was struck by the similarity between the crop mark at Fordham that we saw earlier, what started all of this off, and the cursus. Tram lines, two dark lines, and a line sort of in the centre. And in fact, there is a line of gravel if you look at the ground when it's when there are no crops there. So I started to think, could that be a continuation of our road? And the road also appears, or sorry, the cursus, as most people think it is, also appears on Lidar. There. And then this is a 3D view of that, again done by Tim Dennis. So this is where the road would go. So you can see this is a hill down into the valley there, and I think there we go. So again, an observation, interesting, but it is widely regarded as being a cursus. And the reason for that is, if you look backwards, if you look south at the winter solstice, the sun rises above the hill, and it rises twice because of the shape of the hill. It comes up and then disappears and then comes up again. And that it's thought that that's why the cursus is curved, because as you walk along it slowly, you're lining up with the sun on the winter solstice. But this is how the Roman road could have lined up with it. It's probably, I think now, having gone further, this is unlikely, but it's an interesting theory, I think, and something that I hope we can prove one way or the other, whether the Romans did put their road along there or not. And there's the winter solstice as it looks, photographed from a few years ago, because most years it's foggy or cloudy. This is Sally Bartram from the group took that. Also wanted to show you, this is an image that I managed to get a few weeks ago with, I've got a drone with a thermal imaging camera, and this is one of the probably Bronze Age barrows here. Shows up very, very nicely on the thermal image. We also encounter this lady. I don't want to spend too much time talking about this, but Queen Boudica, there's a thing, an event called the Battle of Camulodunum, which, well, you can read all of this here, which involved a vexillation of the 9th Legion, and it's claimed that this may have happened in Wormingford. That was discounted, I think, yeah, that was discounted largely because Wormingford is in the middle of nowhere. But if our road really does go up there, then that possibly changes everything. Difficult to prove, but again, it's an interesting possibility. We're running out of time, so I'll move on, but that's something that we, the group, are investigating. So where did the road go beyond Wormingford if it didn't follow the cursus, which I think it probably didn't? So on these little maps now, I'm using Wormingford Mere here. I forgot to mention earlier that there's a rumour that Boudica's chariot is at the bottom of Wormingford Mere. Wormingford Mere is a kettle hole left over from the last ice age. So the thought was that perhaps the road joined up with RR 322, Margary's Road 322, along here. But I and others have spent a lot of time looking for evidence in that and couldn't find it. Until literally a couple of weeks ago, one of our members, Ken, gave me a call and said, "Geoff, I think I found your alignment." And it's pretty convincing. It's a hedge line that it doesn't join up with the road there, but kind of converges somewhere here. I'm racing along now because we're running out of time. We also found, or Ken has found, what appears to be a Roman site, but we're keeping quiet about that because the landowner has asked us to. But again, a possible interesting clue. So yeah, another interesting route has shown up recently between Halton St Mary and Long Melford. And this crop mark, which was taken by a drone by Jim Pullen, another of our members, last summer, is what first put us onto it. Wanted to show you just very quickly these alignments on using a thermal camera, again by Jim. You can see that it shows up there, and this is a great image that Jim took on Mersey Island. This is something that we are starting to get more into, thermal imaging, but haven't got time to really talk about that now. What we found, this is the Pye Road. This is alongside the A12, heading, as we said earlier, towards Convertovium. It's a known road, but what wasn't known was this spur. and that started a lot. So this is a Google image, Google Earth shot of the Four Sisters, which is where this road is, the Pye Road. You can see hopefully there, and there's an overlay. The spur, you can see the tram lines there. Okay, and that's how it all joins up. So this is all very exciting. And I've managed to trace it with some certainty all the way to Long Melford over here. Now, the idea was this summer that we've just had to use the drones to find more crop marks. Unfortunately, the summer, as we know, never really materialized, so we didn't manage to do that. But this is pretty much the line of the road, which I believe, I think it is a road. There's enough clues along there. But I've just wanted to quickly mention this point here. This is a little village called Shelley and Shelley Hall. And here's a Lidar image again from Tim. So Shelley Hall is here. It's not showing on the Lidar because the Lidar takes it out, but you can see this line along here, hopefully. This was also spotted by David Ratledge. There you go. There's a cutting through this. This is a bank. And yeah, there's a pumping station, water pumping station here, because this is a river. So it is possible that this is actually just a pipeline. But I met the owner of Shelley Hall and his wife, Andrew and Tessa, lovely people, and they've lived there for a long, long time. And they are pretty sure that there isn't a pipeline there. So maybe it's our road. Whilst looking at that, I spotted this. Okay. What on earth is that? Interesting. Come back to that. So yeah, note how this road and our new road are converging on either Long Melford or Bridge Street up here. This is the sort of southern section of the Peddars Way. So yeah, Long Melford has recently proven to be a very large Romano-British settlement by excavation. The archaeologists at Long Melford believe that this is the site of Sitomargus, because Sitomargus in the Celtic language could mean long market. So it's not a big leap to get from Long Market to Long Melford. But of course, well, various people have come up with theories. Recently, David Ratledge has, again on his website, come up with the theory that Sitomargus is at Ixworth. And I mean, David's argument is compelling. The distances all work out, but Long Melford, Long Market, don't know, worth thinking about. Again, just an observation. So, very briefly, that earthwork that we were just looking at Shelley Hall, this is a 3D image, again done by Tim. Fantastic way of visualizing how things may have looked previously. When I saw this, I thought, right, this looks really amazing. This is what convinced me to go and see the people at Shelley Hall. You can see here traces of ramparts, and there. This is a modern thing where it's been cut out for a car park. And then I contacted a chap called Edward Martin, who, again, I guess a lot of you will know. Really, I'm absolutely indebted to Edward. He was great, and he sent me this map showing this is Shelley Hall. Here is our earthwork, and it says here Coneyburr. So it was a rabbit warren. So yeah, just when you think you've found an unrecorded Motte and Bailey Castle, someone who knows what they're talking about comes along and puts you right. And that's it. Thanks very much for watching. This, by the way, is an image which those of you who saw Mike Haken's talk a month ago will have seen this. This is the Via Principia through Colchester. Just wanted to show this to you because it's just such a fantastic image. I know all of you haven't seen it. They reckon there's at least 9 distinct layers discernible there. So thanks very much. Sorry to have gone over a little bit, but I hope you enjoyed that. I will stop sharing and over to Mike.
Hi, thank you very much, Geoff. Very illuminating. Just bear with me 1 second while that's it, change my view. Right, we've had a couple of questions. If anybody has a question for Geoff, by all means, please continue to use the chat to put them in, and I'll then relay them on to Geoff. The first one, which was from Jim Grady, asked a very good question. Is there any other town where a nexus like Colchester's is known?
You mean the bypass?
No, he means Colchester as a nexus for Roman roads. Is there any other town whose network bears any similarity to what we're seeing at Colchester? I think we know the answer to that.
Well, I think Colchester is, as far as I know, I mean, I've only been doing this for, I don't know what, 3 or 4 years, so I've got an awful lot of catching up to do. But from what I know, Colchester, the roads around Colchester, particularly the ones I've talked about around the west and the north, are very much shaped by the dikes, the dike system that was there, you know, from the Iron Age. But yeah, you know, I can't really get my head around why the road system is like that. So are there other places? Well, yes, there are. There are towns that I have seen where you get a junction of maybe 3 roads, but they're a couple of miles outside the town. Whereas you would have thought that they would have, you know, made a beeline for the town. So I don't quite understand why that is, but I think Colchester is pretty unique, really, unless someone can say to me, "Oh no, there's X, Y, Z up there, you know, which is similar." I think it's pretty unusual, and I have to say, I mean, people like Philip Crummy, Howard Brooks, the guys at the Trust, you know, worked all of their lives on trying to understand the archaeology of Colchester, not just the roads, but the archaeology in general. But there's an awful lot that is not known about Colchester and Camulodunum and how it all sort of fits together. It's fascinating. I'm really glad that I moved here. So I hope that answers your question, Jim.
I think it answers Jim's question. Yeah, I would certainly agree. So, and I can't think of any other town, it's certainly not in Britain, and I've been racking my brains to think in the rest of Europe, to be honest, where there is a nexus quite like Colchester. It isn't simply the number of roads, it's the complexity of it, with link roads joining one to another. We don't really see that on such a level anywhere else, as far as I'm aware.
No, I think the other thing that I think is important is the chronology. You know, the town was there for the best part of 400 years, and an awful lot could have happened. And I think, you know, David Rutledge has spotted on the eastern approach, he's got 2 distinct ways in towards the town. And there are crop marks there. You know, we've done a bit of investigation on that. So at some point, you know, they wouldn't have had 2 approach roads in parallel. So one probably came before the other. But, you know, the chronology is not well known. I'm hoping that this excavation that's going on at the moment is going to tell us at least something about the chronology once that's complete. But that's just one road.
Yeah. We'll move on. We've got a couple more questions from Penny Barrow. Penny's not far from me, in the North York Moors. Not that that's at all relevant. How reliable is gravel as an indicator of Roman roads around rivers and streams? Does it tend to stay very localized to where the road crossed? That raises the thorny issue of Roman fords. You know my thoughts on those, Geoff, and so do most people who watch these, because it comes up all the time. But
right. Yeah, I mean, again, I'm not really qualified to say. You know, as I said at the start, I've presented to you tonight observations, and that is an observation. It is a fact, because we've had a very, very good look that there is a lot of very compacted gravel at that point, and if you walk a mile upstream and downstream, there's nothing really like it. Is it a remnant of the road? I really don't know. I mean, we don't know whether the road was forded, whether there was a bridge, you know, whether there was a causeway. I don't know. We have found evidence. Those two coins that I showed was just some of the evidence, but there's other stuff as well there. We have got permission, sort of, from the landowner to investigate further. We've done a little bit of geophysics. There's just so much to do. But you know, the aim is to try and prove, if we can, eventually by excavation close to that river crossing, that once and for all, whether that is a road or not.
Right. Just to put my own two pence in, gravel, for those who are watching who aren't familiar with road construction, gravel is a very, very common road material, not just for surfacing, but often for actually building the road makeup itself. Gravel is a loose word, small stones compacted with sand or earth and gravel all mixed together. As for using such a material across a ford, if a ford existed, it's going to be very, very difficult to maintain that compaction, particularly in a fast-flowing stream. So I'd be very, very surprised if it's actually the remains of a road structure in situ. But that's not to say if there was an approach to a small bridge, which had been built up, a high agger built up out of gravel over, if it's gone out of use for well over a millennium, that gravel could easily have ended up in the stream.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think also I should mention that the route of the river, you know, the picture I showed you, that's where the river is now, but 2,000 years ago it could have been, you know, 50 meters to the left or 50 meters to the right, because there is a fairly wide kind of floodplain area. Right. So yeah, I think unless we get the chance to excavate at least on one bank to have a look at what's there, it's very difficult to say one way or the other. And I agree, you know, Mike, what you're saying makes sense. I mean, putting gravel across a river, at the first flood, it's just all going to get washed away. So yeah, don't know, but you know, it's an observation.
Yeah, as you say though, it's the stream course could easily have moved.
Yeah.
And there's somebody you possibly know, Mike Hamilton Macy.
Yeah, hi Mike.
Is pointing out that the gravel area is about 5 to 6 meters wide and lines up exactly with the crop mark, and there is no gravel nearby in the riverbed, just as you already said. The fundamental point there actually is the width. The 5 to 6 meters across is absolutely bang on for a relatively ordinary or minor Roman road. Not a major one. You might expect it to be a little bit wider than that, but that's pretty good for most Roman roads.
Yeah, oh, that's interesting.
It's certainly possible. Moving on. Oh dear. Yeah. From Roger Horton. Thanks, Roger, for raising this thorny subject. There's a well-marked Roman road running southeast of Cambridge, which gets as far as Wixow. It's fairly well known. And Margery certainly recorded it. I can't remember the number off the top of my head.
I know which one.
Roger asks, have you any firm evidence of where it went then?
Yeah, good question. Firm evidence. There was a big excavation recently at Wixow and a report written, which I got a copy of. I don't appear to have it anymore. I must have lent it to someone, but it's worth searching that out because it's a very good report. I think people are now starting to prove beyond reasonable doubt that there was a road from Wixow to Long Melford. I'm just trying to think whether that's the one that you're talking about. Whether there's a road between Wixow and sort of this part of the world, I don't know, is the honest answer. But certainly going across, kind of following the line that it kind of goes, follows the Stour Valley, but then goes over the watershed between the Stour and the Cone at Ridgewell. It's pretty certain that there is a road there. So that's yet another road going into Long Melford. But yeah, that's all I know really, I'm afraid.
Yeah, logically, if there is definitely a road between Wicksow and Cambridge, which it really seems like there is,
Yeah,
it ought to be heading towards Colchester. There's little question of that. I've spent a long time looking on Lidar for it and come up with absolutely nothing. And I know David Ratledge has done exactly the same.
yeah.
And I'm guessing you guys have as well.
Yeah,
that's not saying it's not there, though. Just
no, exactly. I mean, yeah, that's what we call the Via Divana, or Wall Street. It's called the Via Divana because it supposedly went all the way from Colchester to Diva, Chester, which is a bit of a, well, anyway, that's where the name comes from. But the evidence for that at our end, at the Colchester end, there isn't any, unfortunately. There's lots of kind of hints by place names. We've got Swan Street, Ford Street, places like that. But actual evidence, Lidar and so on, no, you're right, there's just nothing there.
A good question from Rob Entwistle. Is it reasonable to suppose that some of the roads may predate Roman times, as it was such an important centre earlier? I suspect Rob's hinting at by pre-Roman times, pre-AD 43, when there was almost certainly a strong Roman influence in the south of Britain already after Caesar in the mid-1st century BC. It has been suggested that certainly with a couple of possible roads in northern Britain, that there may have been Roman surveyors working before that period. So I suspect Rob's hinting at that idea, which could explain some of the complexity you've got around Colchester.
It could, absolutely, yeah. Why did the roads head for that junction outside the walled town? It could explain that. I mean, as I said before, I think dating evidence, if we, these guys that are digging up the A12 at the moment, I hope they do a good job, and I'm sure they will do a good job. I hope that they find some evidence to help us to sort of understand the chronology. They hopefully will be able to see which came first, Stane Street or the Great Road, or that maybe not actually see that, but get some more clues, because at the moment we don't really have any idea. And in terms of dating, it's, well, if you find a coin underneath a road, then it gives you the road couldn't have been built before the coin was minted. But I think it's quite difficult, I'm sure you would agree, Mike, to date a road unless you've got something built over the top of it, or you have the Boudiccan destruction layer just below it or something like that. I know that we have got dating evidence from the road that's being excavated at the moment. Whether that will be sufficient to actually date the roads, closer than say 10 years or whatever, I don't know. But yeah, the idea that at least part of this network was already there in a Roman form rather than an Iron Age track or whatever before AD 43 is, I would say that's definitely a possibility.
You're right about dating. The dating a Roman road is nigh on impossible with accuracy, unless you can date it by its association with other features.
Exactly.
You rarely find anything in the road makeup. In a town or a city like Colchester, you do find Roman material in the road makeup, which can help you with dating. But all it tells you is it can't be before a particular date. It could be 100 years after the particular piece of pottery was made. So it is a big problem, and modern technology is starting to help. There's something called OSL, optically stimulated luminescence, which some quite how should we say rather positive claims are made for as to its accuracy. I did have one specialist tell me that they could get up to within 20 years now, and I'm not convinced personally. It was used recently on an excavation near Sheffield, on a very unusual Roman road, but a Roman road nonetheless, which we're absolutely certain of. And they came back with I think it was an 8th century date. So the Vikings built it, apparently.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So OSL. No, anyway.
Yeah.
But it is a big problem.
More work to be done.
Going back to Wixo, Keith Slater from the Long Melford Historical and Archaeological Society has commented that they believe that the Roman road from Cambridge through Wixo actually went to Long Melford. I'm personally not convinced by that, but it's possible. Can't rule it out entirely, but it is quite a change of alignment to do so.
Yeah, I think the guys in Long Melford are doing a lot of work at the moment. I'm in contact with Ken and John, and they, I mean, I'm not up to date, unfortunately, but I know that they are finding roads, and I know that they are convinced that that road exists between Long Melford and Wixo. But you know, the proof, the evidence, well, okay, I don't know what that is, but you know, those guys, they know the area. They've been working on the archaeology for years. They have a feel for it, and I think, you know, that to me suggests that there is a road there.
I have a feeling, I'm not 100% certain about this, that David Ratledge has found evidence for it as well, but I'm not 100% sure about that. It's just something nagging at the back of my head that he mentioned it once. So it's certainly possible. But, we will see. We will see. I mean, I mean, Long Melford, it's not that far away from here, but it's far enough. Yes. I would like to spend a bit more time with the guys over there, you know, especially since the roads that we've been looking at, the one that goes up from Colchester and the one from Holton, do seem to be heading there. So, you know, it would be interesting to see what's going on at that end. A road to Cambridge, for me, would be almost essential if, as everybody always assumes, and it is an assumption, that Colchester was the capital of the province for a period. There's no actual firm evidence for that. It is actually an assumption, but it does seem highly likely. And if that's the case, then logically there needs to be a link to Ermine Street to head north.
Yeah,
it really does.
I agree.
And the only way you would do that is through Cambridge. So it's got to exist, really. We just haven't found it yet. Moving rapidly on, because I'm conscious of the time, from Christopher Spence about the Via Divana again. He's suggesting that the Via Divana does go via Long Melford and then changes direction to go to Cambridge. So it's possible. It's not a massive alignment change.
It is possible, and again, I think if we can prove that this road that we're looking at goes from Colchester to Long Melford, because Margary's got the 322, but if you read it, read his description of it in his book, it basically is all based on a sort of 2 mile long stretch just north of Colchester called the Causeway in Great Hawksley. Beyond that, I think I'm right in saying that he basically admits that it's all conjectural.
Yes.
And then you've got a bit of road at the top end heading towards Bridge Street, which is just north of Long Melford. Again, a very important settlement, which is called a lacuna road, which I guess means a gap road. You know, it's just been put in there as a, well, this is where we think it's going, but we haven't got any evidence. So there isn't very much evidence for most of that route, and yet it's in there as a Margary road. But I think we are potentially looking at the actual route, this route that goes up from Ironlatch Lane, the one that goes across the river and so on. But you know, we've got a lot more work to do. We've got to apply your set of rules, which is going to take quite some time. But you know, planning to do that.
Good.
Yeah.
And then keep me posted on how you go, because I'm sure there'll be tweaks needed to the system.
Okay.
For those who are watching or aren't aware, I developed a system of ratings as to the likelihood of a feature that's been identified as a Roman road actually being one. And it's quite a complex system, but you follow it through means of a key, which was published in our journal last year. If anybody wants a copy, just contact me either via the chat or email me via the website and I'll send you one. Anyway, we'll have to move on because we've got more questions, and guess what? They're all on the same subject. This one is not going away.
Right.
They're more observations than questions. From Tony Fox, there is potentially another from Radwinter to Wixow, and thus a road to Great Chesterford. That one I'm not familiar with.
No. It's a little bit sort of outside my patch, I'm afraid. I mean, I am aware of Wixow and the road from Wixow to Long Melford, and of course the Via Divana, the road that nobody can find. But yeah, I really don't know. Can't comment. It's too far away. Sorry about that.
Right. From John Nunn, Long Melford Heritage Trust has this year excavated a Roman road that possibly joins with the Wixow road. Yeah, I think that's John, the one you were talking about, actually, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. John is one of the archaeologists in Long Melford, and yeah, I mean, I'm aware that they have been excavating a road that it comes from that direction. So you know, the assumption is that yes, it is joining Melford to Wixow, but well, I'm sure John will put me right, but there is a report in existence that was done a year ago, I think, which Ken, one of the guys, sent to me, and I did read, and I can't remember whether that mentions that road or whether it's a later excavation, but I'll find out. I will find out, and I'll let you know, Mike. And then if anybody wants a bit of follow-up information, then do contact us, because what the guys are doing in Long Melford is pretty interesting, especially for roads.
An interesting one from John Wood. This actually is a slightly different subject, but related in a way. The invasion of 43 AD may be incorrectly termed and ought to be described as an expedition. Britannia was probably treated as a protectorate by the Romans since Caesar's intervention. Hence, we ought to see lots of Roman stuff, roads, buildings, etc. before 43 AD. I'm not quite sure a protectorate's really the right word, but I do know what he's getting at. And there is an increasing amount of evidence pointing in that direction. Yeah, certainly with very strong links.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought, because I mean, we base so much on so many of our modern ideas about what happened at that time is based on just a few lines written by Tacitus or Cassius Dio.
Exactly.
And yeah, I mean, I do think we tend to read more into it than we should do.
Yes,
we've got to, you know, we're archaeologists, we've got to be looking for evidence.
You've got to be as objective as possible.
Yeah,
the interaction between late Iron Age Britain and Rome is a fascinating subject. I wouldn't want to give anybody the idea that there were thousands and thousands of Romans over here, Roman military all over the place, because that certainly wasn't the case. But there was interaction. And I've just had a note passed to me from our resident Iron Age archaeologist. Links appear based on individual polities with the collapse of communication around the time of Augustus.
Well,
oh, she wants to write another note. Hang on.
Well, while you're doing that, I assume that's Reb. Caesar Amagus, Chelmsford, is on the Great Road between London and Colchester. Caesar Amagus, so it's a market of Caesar. I mean, is that Julius Caesar? Who do you think that is named after?
Well, it could be anybody. In short, the simple way to work that one out is to find when the place was founded, and whoever was Caesar at the time is or Augustus at the time, more accurately. One thing, there is another question, and then I'm going to go back to Mike Bishop's website, because I've got the correct link. It's all still there, it's just on a different address.
Right, great.
From G. Nixon, no first name. You mentioned a large building outside the North Gate. Seems a curious place to have it. Do we know what function it served and how the road from the gate related to it?
Short answer is no. I don't. All I know is that I was told by Howard Brooks, who was one of the senior archaeologists in the trust, I think was possibly involved in the excavation. This building is basically right in the way of that northern road. There is a report. I should have mentioned all of the trust reports are available online at it's cat.essex.ac.uk, and you'll find all of the reports. There's hundreds of them, very, very good reports going all the way back to the 30s, I guess. And you can search on keywords. So if you search Northgate or North Station Road, I think it is, there is a report on it. There was a big excavation done before I got to Colchester, so it was in the 70s. The old Colchester Market, which was just north of the Northgate, before they built a big insurance company building there, and I think that was when they discovered the road. Sorry, discovered this building and evidence for this road that goes off to the northwest. But I'm afraid I don't really know any more than that.
Right. Well, being from Yorkshire, I know nothing, so I can't comment at all. Yeah, Elizabeth has just put the URL on the chat for anybody who wants it. Yeah. Just after I've actually put Mike Bishop's URL for his various maps. All of the maps that Mike's done, you can download the data for them. In fact, I've just done all that this afternoon. So it all works, but it is quite a complex procedure. So you'll need to read his notes and instructions very carefully. And if you still can't do it, contact me and I'll hopefully help you through it. There is another question just come in. Oh, from Tony Fox. Marvelous talk. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
Here we go. From Rob Entwistle again. There's been quite a lot of discussion about Caesarea Magus. One argument is that it refers to Claudius and was an intended but failed replacement capital for the Trinovantes as the Romans took Camalodunum. I'm not familiar with that suggestion, but
okay, that's interesting. Yep, I'll follow that up.
Rob knows much more about that period than me. As indeed does my other half. I've got another note. Some early military activity suggested at Chichester and Colchester, Laycock and Russell 2010, but evidence is limited. Post Caesar, but pre 43 AD.
Okay.
And that's the book.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And,
I haven't got. Yeah.
Unfortunately, Miles Russell isn't one of our attendees tonight. He is occasionally, but not tonight, which is unfortunate. Otherwise, we could milk him for that.
Yes, we could.
So, not tonight. Right. I think that is just about it. I'm not seeing anything else from Elizabeth, so I don't think there's any more questions.
Okay, well, if I could just say to those of you still there, if anyone has any thoughts or whatever, wants to contact myself or Mike, please do, because I'd be very glad to hear from you. As you can see, I've got an awful lot of catching up to do, but we've got some pretty interesting stuff showing up around Colchester, and we need all the help we can get. So please do contact us if you think you can help us.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good evening, Bev.
Right. Yes, I'm no good at this typing business, so can I speak instead?
Oh, go on. Why not? Hello to. I always get this wrong. It's Gloucestershire, isn't it?
No, Bristol.
Oh, Bristol. Well, I was close. Used to be Gloucester, didn't it?
Well, half of it. Anyway, as time is moving on, just a couple of observations about possibilities. All those different kinds of roads leading in all sorts of different directions, that we tend sometimes to think of Roman roads as being roads, all the same sort of status, but they aren't. There are the main state roads, there's the local roads that go across the country and go to particular places and are minor roads, which may or may not be made up. There also could be tracks between settlements, agricultural settlements, which have nevertheless ditches, just like tracks in the countryside still do, for obvious reasons. They need to be drained as well. So it may not be a sort of a road in any one sense. There could also be a private road leading from something like a villa to a main road, the via diverticulum is the Latin term. So that complex of roads, all puzzlingly all over the place, may be the result of a complex of those kinds of roads as well. The main roads, local roads, whatever. The other thing I would say, which is quite brief, and I don't see how that necessarily relates to the roads as or what you've been seeing, bearing in mind that Colchester is a colonia, then you might very well expect centuriation. Centuriation is a common feature of a colonia, and that might be something to bear in mind about that. There was that bloke from, I forget his name now. He died a year or two ago.
John Peterson.
John Peterson, that's right, that's the one. He had lots of thoughts about centuriation. So those are two observations I'd make. Variety of roads plus the possibility of centuriation outside of Colonia.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thanks for that. You're absolutely right. I mean, what I've presented tonight is very much a simplified view of what is going on around Colchester. There are lots of bits of road showing where somebody digs their garden up to put a foundation in for a garage or something like that, and they find evidence of a road, and the archaeologists can't link it into anything else. And I think the explanation for that has got to be that there are these other minor roads and so on. What I would say about the roads that I showed tonight, which go from the grammar school interchange, as I call it, is they are all major roads. They've all been excavated to a certain extent in various places, so that they're not minor roads. There are minor roads going off there. There's at least one that I didn't show, which has been proved. But yeah, you're right. There are roads everywhere here. It's just it's a minefield. I will never get my head around it, and I think the archaeologists that have been working here all of their lives tend to steer clear of Roman roads, I think.
Yes.
But thanks for that.
Okay.
It is actually a very important point that Bev's made and made before, quite rightly, that we tend to think of Roman roads as being the always straight, really well constructed, high agger structures. But those are only one type of Roman road, the via publicae in general, or even though certainly in the north, most of those were actually built by the military, not by the not by the local towns. But the other classes of roads certainly did exist, but we have very little evidence that enables us to be able to distinguish one from the other, except from possibly the quality of surveying. The surveying is probably the key. There are examples of local roads that I know of in Yorkshire, several of them, and they're anything but straight. They're
Right.
not surveyed at all. The actual construction is very similar to what we would think of as a Roman road, but they're not straight. They're not surveyed in the same way. That's the bit that seems to be missing, certainly in the north. I can only speak from my own experience in this. But from a few that I've looked at further south, there seems to be potentially a similar pattern, that the standard of surveying is lesser when you go down the order, if you like. If you think about a modern parallel, if you think of most of our minor roads, C roads and less, They are generally very, very sinuous roads based on pre-existing trackways that could go back hundreds of years. B roads to a lesser degree, they tend to be of a better quality. Etc. A roads, as we go up the tree, they get better engineered, better surveyed, better quality. It was no different in the Roman period.
Absolutely.
But what we tend to be looking at and call Roman roads are what we would generally think of as A roads, by and large. There were tens of thousands of miles of other roads and trackways in use in the Roman period, built to varying standards. That's a lecture in itself, which who knows, we might have one next year.
Absolutely, yeah. Look forward to it.
Right, and I think that is. Oh, hang on. There is a question from Stephen Horn, very late one. Could it be that many of these roads could actually be drovers / traders roads needed to service the military presence? Probably not, is the likeliest answer to that. Roads were extremely expensive to build. Now, if the military considered them to be necessary, it's possible they would be built. But I'd be surprised if they were specifically to serve a military presence from a trading point of view.
Well, that's interesting, because we have a very well-known road that goes from Stane Street to Great Tay. It's about, I don't know, 2 or 3 miles long, and it's a very well made, probably very well surveyed road, which appears to go as far as a known villa at Great Tay and then stop. Well, it's possible that it does continue, but it looks like the road was put in to service the villa. And one of our members is also looking at what is almost certainly a Roman road near Ingatestone, which is on the Great Road, the A12. Again, dead straight, well surveyed.
Yes.
We don't know how good or bad it is, but that also looks like it's going out to possibly to a villa complex.
Yeah, I possibly wasn't very clear in my response. Access roads, well surveyed and well built access roads to villa complexes are well known. There are lots of them all over the country. We even have them in Yorkshire. So yes, they are well known. They're not always well surveyed, but they very frequently are, for one very good reason. The landowner wanted to establish his place in society, and he would spend a lot of money in making sure everybody knew his status. So a nice, straight, well-made road leading to a villa makes an awful lot of sense. It's not purely about trade, it's about showing his status. It's the same thing as in Rome itself, where important people would pay for lengths of Roman road to be paved. Not just in Rome, but elsewhere in northern Italy and other parts, mainly in southern Europe. It's not something we've any evidence of here, but it probably happened here as well, that in cities and towns where Roman roads were occasionally paved in Britain, not often, but occasionally, that would have been paid for by private money, by somebody's own private wealth, with a very nice plaque on the wall that everybody could see, so they knew he'd paid for it. Let's face it, it still happens, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Public buildings named after people, it's the same thing.
Yeah, we need to find more of those plaques, don't we?
Yeah, we do. One final comment, and then I think we better wind it up because it's 9:20. Great Tay Parish Church contains many Roman tesserae. What, I don't know if that has any specific relevance to the
Great Tay Roman Church. Great Tay Church has actually has quite a lot of Roman brick in it, I believe, and the thought is that the Roman brick and tile that came from the villa, which is, you know, just a few hundred meters away.
Yes, it's likely.
We have really a lot of churches in this part of the world with Roman brick and tile in them, because we don't have any stone. There's no natural stone here apart from down at the coast. So yeah, I mean, Colchester, we know, was treated as a giant quarry after the Romans left. They just used to take the bits of stone and stuff off the building, especially in the medieval times. So yeah, Great Tay, there is a known villa site. There's nothing left of it. Quite a lot of it is now in the church. Absolutely right.
We just can't stop, I'm afraid, Geoff. There's another question.
Okay.
Any milestones from the Colchester area? I'm not sure about that.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I was talking to somebody about that the other day. If there are, then I'm not aware of it. But again, you know, if you do a search on the trust,
I've already done it. I've just done it.
Okay.
I have a map with milestones on.
Oh, okay.
Just brought it up. There isn't one.
No.
So the short answer is no.
Yeah, that's probably they've all been reused.
Yes, they will have been.
I mean, they must have been scrabbling about, you know, some of those churches, the Saxon era churches. It's amazing where they found stuff from to build those. So anything, a milestone, yeah, I mean, that would be propping up the tower.
Well, propping up the tower, but being cylindrical, I'm sure that several of them ended up as horse-drawn field rollers.
Yeah.
I used to know somebody who owned a stone roller, and it could easily have been a Roman milestone. I'm not saying it was, but it was the right size.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's. Oh, hang on, John Nunn again. We're going to be here till 11 o'clock, but I will. This has got to be the last one.
Yeah. Important to answer, John.
Sorry, it's from Christopher, not John Nunn. I have just found the road at Ingatestone on Lidar, heading towards Hanningfield Reservoir.
That sounds like a different road.
Right. I know nothing, but Christopher, get in touch with Geoff and let him know more details. And finally, John Nunn again, and this really has to be the last one. The road we excavated this year in Long Melford measures 6 meters wide, which seems quite a substantial road. To be honest, John, that's fairly normal. 6 meters is typical, with a running width of about 5 meters. It's actually very rare to have a Roman road with a running width of less than 5 meters. Very rare indeed. In the hills in Wales, there's only in the mountains in Wales, and there's a lot of Roman roads in Wales, believe me. Only a handful are less than 4.5 meters wide, even there in the mountains. So 6 meters wide, depends where you're measuring it. So if you're measuring 6 meters across the actual running width or the base of the agger is normally at least 1 meter more. So sounds fine to me. Right, Elizabeth is winding us up. Thanks very much for all the questions and comments. See you in a month. So we really must go. It's 9:20. Thank you everybody for asking so many questions, for interacting as always. I think we're going to have to start scheduling more time. Lots of thank yous coming in. So well done, Geoff.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Glad at least some of you enjoyed it. And see you again in a month.
Yes.